I'll open the meeting. Okay, thank you. Welcome, councillors and the public watching. I'll open the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee meeting for the 10th of February. The first item on the agenda is IPEC 22/1, leave of absence. We have one request for a leave of absence for Councillor Matt Wright. Could I have someone move that way, please? Thank you, Councillor Etheridge, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. IPEC 22/2, conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest that any councillors would like to identify from this particular committee meeting? Being done, I'll move on to the next item, IPEC 22/3, election of chairperson. I'll hand over to the CEO.
No, you can do it.
Yeah, okay. So I'll hand over to the CEO as the returning officer for the election of chairperson. So, Mr. CEO, if you could run that for me, please.
Calling out, are there any nominees for the chairperson to the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee?
I would like to nominate Joshua Black for this committee, Chair.
So just a minor thing, you don't need to stand up in committees, so that's nice, but yeah, you don't need to. Yeah.
We have a seconder.
I'll second that, thank you.
Councillor Black, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Are there any other nominations for the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee? As there is only one nomination for the position of chairperson of the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee, I advise that Councillor Black is duly elected for the mayoral term. If you could make your way to chair the meeting, Councillor Black. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, councillors. We move right along to item IPEC 22/4, update on reconstruction of Mendoran Road and Boofenbar Road intersection. Can I please have someone to move the recommendation of the report of the Manager of Infrastructure, Strategy and Design? Councillor Etheridge, thank you. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Chowdhury, thank you. Any questions or debate, councillors? Councillor Dickerson.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Just a minor thing on that. I just thought it was worth noting that this has been a problem area and there have been a couple of accidents, serious accidents there resulting in fatalities, which is obviously very unfortunate. The last council did actually start the process to actually change this intersection, to close down this intersection or to close down a section of road there, and this is following on from that process. So it's good to see we're making some progress on that, and again we'll get to that point when we go through that final process to try and make that area safer. I know some people in the community have been concerned that it hasn't happened already, but I think it's a process that needs to be followed very closely and carefully to make sure we get the right outcome for it.
Thank you, Councillor Dickerson. Any other questions or debate on this issue? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried. On to the next item. IPEC 22/5, Building Summary, December 2021 and January 2022. Can I please have someone move the recommendation of the report of the Director, Planning, Development and Environment? Councillor Mann, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Ivey. Any questions or debate on that, councillors?
Sorry, Councillor Black.
Councillor Dickerson.
Once again, just more of a comment there, and I'd be interested in through you, Mr. Wallace's view on that. The value of applications has gone up quite significantly, $186 million in the December 2021 to December, in the month of December 2021 there for last year compared to December 2020. Interesting to note that the number of applications has actually gone down slightly, so some higher value applications have come through. I'm not sure if Mr. Wallace wants to add any commentary to that.
Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, Mr. Chair. Look, I don't have any specifics to add other than it does show a greater focus on higher value works across the city, and we've certainly been noticing that in the applications we've received. And it's nothing more definitely specific, although we have had applications from One Church Street, for example, that have added to that. But overall, it's very positive. At $186 million for the year to date, as compared to $112 million at the same time last year.
Thank you, Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Wallace. Any further questions or debate, councillors? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried. On to the next item. Item IPEC 22/6, naming of thoroughfares on the former RAF base depot, Lot 11 DP 10502440 Palmer Street, Dubbo. Can I please have someone to move the recommendation of the report of the LIS&E Services Coordinator? Councillor Wells, is there a seconder? Councillor Goff, thank you. Any questions or debate, councillors?
Just a comment, Councillor Black.
Councillor Wells.
Really interesting to see them paying homage to, with the naming of the streets, to the old RAF base and the aircraft that was there.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Yes, that's good to see. Any other questions or debate, councillors? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried. There are no further items for consideration of the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee, and I declare the meeting closed, the time being 5:39 p.m. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Councillor Black. I now declare open the Culture and Community Committee meeting for the 10th of February 2022. First item on the agenda is CCC 22/1, leave of absence. I have a request for a leave of absence from Councillor Wright. Could I have someone move that way, please? Thank you, Councillor Sherry. Seconded by Councillor Goff. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. The next item is CCC 22/2, conflicts of interest. Do I have any conflicts of interest to be declared, councillors? No? I'll move on to the next item then, CCC 22/3, election of chairperson. I'll hand over to the CEO to run the election as a returning officer to run the election for chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Are there any nominates for chairperson to the Culture and Community Committee?
I'll nominate Councillor Goff.
Can we have a seconder? We go Councillor Wells. Do you accept the nomination, Councillor Goff?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other nominations? As there is only one nomination for the position of chairperson of the Culture and Community Committee, I advise that Councillor Goff is duly elected for the mayoral term.
Item CCC 22/4, Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program, Phase 3, project nominations. Can I please have someone move recommendations on the report of the Manager Economic Development and Marketing? Councillor Etheridge, seconded by Councillor Wells. Thank you. Any questions or debate? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Got carried away then. As you might recall, I campaigned heavily during the recent election campaign on fixing Wheelers Lane. It's great to see that that's in this report, and I'm very happy to vote for it. Very happy to vote for something that I campaigned on. And also thanks to the federal government for providing that funding through that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. All those in favour?
Oh, just see if there's any other comments.
Oh.
Hang on. Just,
Sorry. Is there any other comments? Oh, Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I would like to point out to the public as part of this process that when you look at the summary of those projects, there's about $4.3 million being spent overall, and sometimes the equity in terms of funding for various projects is discussed between the old Wellington LGA and the old Dubbo LGA, but it's interesting to note there's about $1.7 million, just over $1.7 million of that 4.3 going to the old Wellington LGA. And from a perspective of population size of the two, I think that's quite good that the Wellington LGA is getting much larger than 20% share of that $4.3 million. So it's interesting to note from that perspective. It doesn't always work out that way, but in this case I think the Wellington residents are going quite well from that overall funding. Keeping in mind the federal government gives the $4.3 million for the LGA. They don't care about the old Wellington and old Dubbo, but I know some people discuss the funding inequities between those two. Thanks, Councillor Goff.
Councillor Ivey.
Just following on from what Councillor Dickinson said, I would like to point out, though, that particularly the decisions on roads is not just based upon population. I mean, it's based upon length of roads servicing the area, and one would therefore expect some of those areas to get more allocation than just on a population basis.
Just responding to Councillor Ivey, one of the things I think that is interesting is the generation of income. Sometimes I hear discussion from residents about how much rate money they're generating, and I suppose that's what I was focusing on, that the 20% of the population from Wellington generates about roughly 20% of the overall rate income. This is federal government money, I realise, but sometimes the funding does go in relation to the rates. I take Councillor Ivey's point that the LGA, the old LGA sizes of the two were very similar. So the road networks may be similar, but the funding generation from the two old council areas is remarkably different. So I think in that case, Wellington is doing quite well despite the relative size of the two LGAs. Thank you, Councillor Goff.
Any other questions or debate? All those in favour? All those against? I declare the motion carried. Item CCC 22/5, Draft Council Policy, Maintenance of Nature Strips and Laneways. We have a short presentation from Mr Arms, our Manager of Operations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillors, before you have a draft policy which at its heart is asking for the community to assist council in the maintenance of its open space by maintaining their nature strips and laneways as it may apply. I want to explain the reason why we're asking for that by giving you an overview of what our mowing scope is across the LGA. And the presentation I'm about to give you is focused on Dubbo as a case study. It does have elements of Wellington, but in order to make it as digestible as possible, I've tried to keep it as concise as possible. But the issues and principles and concepts that I'll talk about are reflected in Wellington as well. So if we can start, I just want to explain that the livability operations, which is I'm the manager for, is the primary source of mowing and open space maintenance for council, and we maintain the city's parks and gardens, sporting facilities, natural areas, so on, cemeteries, trees, biosecurity. That's our core business. We have over 1,000 hectares of open space in the LGA, and our mowing fleet, when compiled, equates to sort of one grass cutting piece of plant per 175 hectares. So it's a big mowing scope. But we also mow other areas within council, so grass that is part of assets of other branches in council. For example, urban roadside verges, highway approaches, walkways, laneways, and so on, as you can see there on the screen. So it's like I said, it's a very big scope of works. Our mowers, for Dubbo for parks are these. We've got two large and medium-sized mowers with two casual whips. What you see there on the screen makes up the bulk of the mowing of our open space throughout the Dubbo area. It's supported by a second larger mower, which does our central parks like Elston Park, Victoria Park and Elizabeth Park. They're high quality, high standard parks. We're also supported by 2 zero-turns to do the cutting in the smaller parks, as well as our slasher and our sporting mower fleet. That is the mowing fleet complement for Dubbo. So we push them hard. What you see on the screen there is an indication of that our mowing engine hours are in excess of industry benchmarks, so they're working hard. What you see there is a representation of the livability assets for Wellington. So there's 17 separate locations, around 12 hectares of country. And importantly for Wellington, there's a lot of travel involved. There's more villages over that side, and there's a lot more travel in between locations. So it's an important component. The travel does eat into actual time available on the mower. That's a representation of the open space available within Dubbo itself. It's largely those green areas. So it's a lot of country. The bulk of our 1,000 hectares you can see there on the screen. If we take the Track-a-Riley mowing, for example, it's about a 6-kilometre loop, but it takes us 11 days to mow that blue section there, which is the bulk of the Track-a-Riley walkway itself. And an additional, an additional 6 days to maintain the yellow area, which is that Regan Park area. So particularly for the blue, it's 11 days. There's 18 working days in the month. So it effectively gives us 7 days to do the rest. That's our slasher. So it's around 48 Victoria Parks worth of slashing across the LGA. It's a very big season. It's working very hard at the moment. When our driver's not in that tractor, he's in what we call Mr. Splashy, which is our tree watering truck, and typically that does a rotation of 500 tree waterings for each rotation of the city. Our tree management is focused in our branch. So last year we did over 600 tree inspections with up towards 350 actions, and so that's a very large scope of works with 2 operational staff doing that work. Nearly 20 cemeteries across the LGA. If we look at Wellington in particular, if we service each location once and return to base, we're looking at driving around 407 kilometres. So it's effectively driving to Newcastle to service our cemeteries once. It's that service area that we've got to cover, which is a key component here. We just don't do mowing or gardening. There's also our built assets that we need to maintain. For example, there's 43 playgrounds within Dubbo itself, and they are inspected quarterly and monthly, and there's a lot of time and energy which goes into tracking our defect resolution to keep those items safe and operating to best practice. Our sporting facilities, I think, are some of the best in regional Australia, and they're spread across the city like that. So, and finally, to finish off our core business for livability is our biosecurity aspect. It sort of largely goes unsung, the work here, but we've got very heavy commitments with our pest and weeds strategies and our weeds action plan, which is a contract with the state government, and from there comes our urban weed spraying, which I'll come to a little later. So that represents livability core, but we also do additional work for other branches of council. Our CBD has 35 separate assets within it that we have a dedicated person for and that we maintain. We have over 100,000 square metres of traffic medium within Dubbo. It's a lot. So if we look at it on a map, it looks something like that. But this is a little old. It doesn't include South Lakes, Blue Ridge Estate, Magnolia Estate, Macquarie View, the Grange and Outlook Estate. So they are all additional work that we're absorbed as Dubbo grows. It takes a lot of time. Why is that an important thing? Well, if you look at South Lakes, you may think that grass area is all that we maintain, but that would be wrong. We also include about 34 traffic islands and gardens on roadside assets, as well as 6 walkways, 8 walkways, and around 2,000 odd metres of open drain that we maintain. So it's a very intense area and is reflected in each residential estate respectively. Our drainage basins are maintained by us. Some take relatively little maintenance. Some, like this one, take a whole lot of time. Developers like to embellish the entrances to their estates, and that's understandable, but we would then be expected to maintain areas like this at a high standard as well. Again, it's time-consuming. Maintaining gardens in new residential estates also fall with us as well. Areas like this are high intensity, and the key thing here is it takes us away from mowing, is maintaining areas like this. So, and when we look at Keswick Estate Stage 5, this is the developing plan for that area. It is lovely, no doubt about it, but it will take maintenance to maintain. It's important to understand. There's 52 acres of transmission easement within Dubbo that we maintain. We do the highway slashing, guides posts, spraying and rest area maintenance out to Elong quarterly, 3 or 4 times a year. We also maintain around 12 kilometres of highway approaches as well. They take a lot of energy. They're also representative of the city, and we understand that. But they're difficult areas to mow. It's a dangerous environment. We're working next to the highway, but they're also very hard on our mowers as well. If we put them all together, they look like that. It's not just a straight up and down deal. There's a lot of twists and turns. It takes a lot of energy to maintain and take a lot of complicated traffic planning to do safely. Drainage basins are spread throughout the city. They're typically harder areas with steep sides, difficult to mow, as well as around 21 acres of walkways in the city, over 50 different sites. It's a surprising fact, but it's true, and we maintain these as well. If we put them all together, they look like that. So a really intense group of assets there. So the new cycling facility, wonderful new cycling facility, but there's a lot of grass there to mow. The club has really stepped up there and helped us here, but ultimately the buck stops with us, and we're aware of how much grass we have to mow there. What I would say service level creep is where we're upgrading our playgrounds like Algona Park, which you see on the screen there. It's a wonderful facility, much better than what it was, but it certainly draws in more maintenance resources for us. We've increased our frequency there by 82%, so that's got to come from somewhere else. With new parks as well, it's the same deal. So our Adventure Playground that you see up here to the right, we've got a thumbs up for that in the local media recently, much appreciated. But the reason why we've got that is because we have a dedicated person there. So he has a very focused portfolio and produces a good result, but we don't have him spread throughout the city. And then we have a lot of these areas, which are these awkward, almost forgotten places off the side. They're spread throughout the city, need to be maintained. We do that as well. If we look at Wellington and our roadside verges, it's a real issue there. It's just the way that city is built around its roadside. So it's this curb and gutter to the thoroughfare. It's that area there. So if we were to mow that as well as the other roadside areas throughout Wellington, we're looking at around 660 kilometres of mowing. So that's getting on your ride, on driving to Newcastle and then back to Marywall. That's the length of country that we're talking about. The village nature strips, this is part of the policy. Some people mow their nature strips, others don't. We look to them to help us out by doing that. And if we put them all together for the villages, it looks something like that. It's representative for us to mow that or have a contractor mow it. We're looking around $22,000 per treatment. If we're 4 to 8 treatments a year, it's somewhere up towards $170,000 potentially. And then we have our nature strips. Right? So season like this, where everything's growing very much, things like this really do stand out, but we really do look to the adjoining private property owner to maintain their portion of that. How much nature strip, what level of country is there within Dubbo? I don't know, but I'm going to go with a lot. There's 18 individual laneways in Wellington, in Wongarban, for example. So if we join them all together, there's about 3.5 kilometres. It equates to 7 kilometres of whippersnipping. There's 7 acres of laneways in Wongarban alone. Our urban weed spraying is intense. What you see on the screen is our list that we work through. We try to do our best to work through. Each one of those lines is a geographic location, sometimes a single location, sometimes up to 2 kilometres long. What you see there is West Dubbo, but there's our Central Dubbo list and our South and North Dubbo list. My point here is there's a lot of urban weed spraying to be done. And it competes with our biosecurity obligations as well, which we take very seriously, and that we have contractual obligations with the state government for. Our staff are very proud. They take their work very seriously. We track our performance regularly and look for improvements and try to, and have a goal of increasing our output regularly each year. We are making improvements, we can demonstrate that. Here's our mowing output for the last 3 years up to 2020. We were 145% increase on our first year, which was 2018, so we're working hard on that. But when we're able to get our mowing right and have our trained horticulturalists focus on gardens rather than mowing, we can produce results like this at Victoria Park, and that's what we'd love to see. Finally, I would say, Dubbo's a growing city. Our expectations are growing as well. I think to respond to that, we need to understand where we are, what we need, where we want to get to, so we can work on a plan about how we get there.
Thank you, Mr Arms. Can I please have someone move the recommendation on the report of the manager's operations? Councillor Chowdhury, and second to Councillor Etheridge. Any questions or debate? Councillor Ivey.
It was very good. It was very informative. And one thing that really brought home to me was that how important it is. Now, I'm sure everyone knows how important it is to have parks and gardens and mowing and things like that. But being the economist a little bit that I am, I'm sure there's almost a direct relationship between the standard of that work and the $182 million of DA approvals we get. The better the place is, the more attractive it is, the better it's looked after, the evidence of pride in the community will drive development. So I think it's really important that that's realised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Councillor Mann.
Just a question, this type of policy wouldn't be unusual in many councils, I would assume?
Murray.
Thank you. Yeah, you're quite right. So in developing that policy, we did a desktop exercise looking at a whole range of other councils, and time again, the intent of what you have in front of you is reflected in their documents. So it's really is a reality of open space management, I think, in Australia.
Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I note in the information that the next steps involve a public display for 28 days, and because this is probably going to be something that's a slightly different approach, probably more so for residents in Wellington than residents in Dubbo, I actually prefer it to be on public display a bit longer. It does say minimum 28 days, but through you to perhaps the CEO, if we could have that potentially for, say, 42 days, for example, if that would be acceptable. I think that gives the public a better opportunity to know what we're talking about and give feedback, because some people mightn't be happy about that, but again, we've got to have that process of budgetary constraints versus performance. So through you, Councillor Goff, to the CEO, if that's possible.
Yeah, CEO, Mr Woods.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly very comfortable with 42 days on public exhibition. We would be backing up any time frame with a consultation engagement piece of work, so I hope councillors have that confidence we'll do that the right way. 42 days would bring that back to around the April committee's council meeting. That would be opportune time in informing budget development that you'll be working on as well. So I think that's good timing in terms of 42, so very comfortable in that regard.
Thank you, and congratulations, Mr Arms, as well. Comprehensive view of what we've got across the whole Dubbo Regional Council area, and I think it just gives some appreciation of the work that your team is doing, and I think the improvement in that, I think you've done a fantastic job over the last couple of years since you've joined the team in improving the efficiency there. The team were doing a great job before, but sometimes just fine-tuning that efficiency gives more performance without having to increase the cost or the resources. So congratulations to the work you've done there as well, which I think that presentation reflects.
Any further comments? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, very comprehensive report, excellent presentation. The more people in the whole LGA that could see that presentation, the better. To see it's such a Herculean task to maintain all of those spaces. I've certainly thought over the years that, gee, what's council doing with all my money? And then I see a presentation like that and I think, how do they do so much with so little? You can only stretch the dollar so far, so thank you very much for that. And thank you to all the staff out there who are working, especially the last couple of years where there's been lots of rainfall, above average rainfall, there's so much more mowing to do, so they're doing what they can. Thank you.
Just over to the CEO.
Councillors, just picking up on Councillor Dickinson's point on the 42 days, we just say in the recommendation before you for the purposes of public exhibition. Now, the default in the Local Government Act is the 28 days, so we could add on for the purpose of public exhibition for a period of 42 days, and if the mover of the motion, Councillor Chowdhury, would accept that as the substantive motion, we can move that accordingly.
Happy to accept.
Just ask for a seconder. Councillor Black. It's now part of the motion. Any more further debate? I would also like to add a well done to Mr. Arms and his team. It was a fantastic presentation. I agree with Councillor Black that if more people saw that, they maybe their expectations wouldn't be so high. It definitely gets rid of the perception that council workers lean on their shovels. But so well done and keep up the good efforts. I declared that.
No, you've got to move the vote.
Oh, where am I to?
Yeah, you've done that. All those in favour.
Okay.
All those in favour.
All those in favour?
Carried.
Carried. There are no further items for consideration for the Culture and Community Committee, and I declare the meeting closed at the time being 6:05.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I now declare open the Corporate Services Committee meeting for 10th of February 2022. First item on the agenda is CSC 22/1, leave of absence. We have a request for leave of absence from Councillor Wright. Can someone move that way, please? Thank you, Councillor Mann. Seconded by Councillor Black. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. CSC 22/2, conflicts of interest. Any councillors who'd like to? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary less than significant interest in item CSC 22/4. That was the part sale of Keswick to Dubbo Christian School. I'm employed by Dubbo Christian School. The sale was on the 4th of November, well before the 4th of December council election, so I'll be staying in the room when that matter comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Any further conflicts of interest to be declared by any councillors? Thank you. I'll move on to the next item, CSC 22/3, election of chairperson. I'll hand over to Mr Wood, the CEO, as a returning officer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Are there any nominees for the chairperson for the Corporate Services Committee?
I'll nominate Damien Mann.
There we are. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Mann, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thanks.
Are there any other nominations? As there is only one nomination for the position of chairperson of the Corporate Services Committee, I advise that Councillor Mann is duly elected for the mayoral term. Congratulations.
The committee meeting for the Corporate Services Committee open. Item CSC 22/4, quarterly report on documents executed under power of attorney. Can I please have someone move the recommendation of the report of the governance team leader? Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Seconder, please. Councillor Goff, thank you. Any questions or debate? No questions or debate, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried. Unanimous. Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Item CSC 22/5, Councillor Workshop Schedule Overview. Can I please have someone move the recommendation of the report of the governance team leader? Councillor Chowdhury, thank you. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Wells, thank you. Any questions or debate? Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. It's worth noting in here just some of the processes. I suppose one of the things that are interesting is a lot of people don't realise just how many things council is responsible for. In some of these workshops, when you look through some of these workshops, they're talking about things such as the airport, talking about things such as the power of attorney that the CEO might have, going on a bus tour down through Dubbo, down through Wellington. It's a fairly comprehensive list, and that's really just a look at maybe 1 month of some of those workshops. So I think the councils are appreciating the work that's been put in by the staff to run those workshops, but also I think it's good for the public to see all those different components of council that council's involved in, and I suppose they'd be interested to see the things that we're learning about council, and that's just, again, 1 month. There's so much more that's being learned, and in the induction processes and the workshops, there's a lot going on there, but I suppose the community should have confidence knowing we're running through those workshops, we're learning a lot of things, and also the staff's working hard to make sure the councillors are up to speed. So thank you to the staff for their hard work in that, and thank you to the councillors who are attending those in very big numbers.
Thanks, Councillor. I'd endorse those comments. As a new person on the council, it's been an amazingly in-depth induction so far. The training and the skill and the quality of the staff that we have really paints a great picture for the council. So to the team that's put this all together so far for the councillors, I thank you very much. All those in favour of any more debate, sorry? All those in favour? It's carried. I declare that carried. Item CSC 22/6, investment under section 625 of the Local Government Act, January 2022. Can I please have someone move the recommendation of the report of the Chief Finance Officer? Thank you, Councillor Black. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Ivey, thank you. Any questions or debate, please, councillors?
The advice that council gets on the range of investments, the range and allocation of the investments, can someone just give me a brief overview of how that works?
Mr. CEO.
I'll pass it up to Mr. Frost.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The council meets with our advisors, Laminar, on a monthly basis to review the investments that we have maturing, and then they provide us with advice in terms of where best to put those. The council's provided us with an investment strategy or an investment policy that dictates the amount of funds that we can have in particular rated investments, so AAA, AA, etc., and also limits to the amount of exposure that we have to any particular bank or authority. So it's sort of a combination of those things, and our revenue people work with our consultant advisors to provide to make those decisions.
Thank you. Is there any further questions or debate? Okay. All those in favour, please. That's carried unanimously. There have been no further items for consideration of the Corporate Services Committee. I declare the meeting closed, the time being 6:12 p.m. Thank you.